I think that they need to put themselves in the buyer's shoes and ask themselves, how would I be using AI to make a buying decision?
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for in eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the deepening relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and I run boot camps that help companies get paid more. Our guest today is Mr. Stephen Forth. Stephen invited Michael Mansard and me to join him on an Ibbaka webinar about the monetization of AI. What an incredible topic. And we came up with some other things we needed to talk about just based on that webinar. So welcome, Stephen.
Delighted to be here as always.
First off, I'm going to say thank you to the whole world. I'm going to say thank you to you in front of the whole world for turning me from an AI skeptic to an AI advocate. I am now trying to figure out how to help more and more people use AI to get their jobs done better, whatever that happens to mean. So it's pretty cool.
It's transformative.
It really is. It really is. So when we did the webinar, it was an hour of fabulous content. Everybody should go back and find that webinar and listen to it because it's one of the best webinars I've ever participated in. It was really good. But one of my favorite concepts you brought up were the 4 types of AI products. And so can you briefly go over those so that we can launch into the topic that we really want to talk about today?
Yeah. So as we've been researching and engaging with people on how AIs create value and how they're going to be monetized and packaged and priced and billed, we've started to see some patterns emerging. So most of what we are talking about today, when we talk about AI, is generative AI. And I'd say probably 70% of that is transformer AI based on language models. So we thought of really 2 dimensions.
So before you go too far, I just want to simplify this as we go. So that means ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is a good example of a transformer-based language model. And in fact, the GPT stands for General Pre-trained Transformer.
Okay, perfect.
That's what GPT means. So theoretically, you could have lots of general pre-trained transformers. It's just that OpenAI decided to grab that terminology. So, at the basis of this, you have what we call generators. And generators are things that, when asked, generate content. So they are, they are not continuous. They are responding when you ask it to do something. And they are, so one dimension is sort of continuity and the other is autonomy. And they're not very autonomous.
You have to ask it.
You have to ask it. And as you know, sometimes this can involve creating quite complex, long prompt sequences. But they are the foundation of everything else. ChatGPT is an example of what we're calling a copilot. And a copilot is something that is always available to you to help you do your work. And I think Microsoft which really has branded on copilots, has done the best job. And a copilot sits on your shoulder as you work with your spreadsheets, with your presentations, with your databases, and it helps you along the way.
So prior to the whole ChatGPT popularity, I was using Grammarly. Mm-hmm. And so Grammarly would be an example of a copilot.
Grammarly is also a very good example of a copilot and still a very valuable copilot, I would say.
Works great for me.
Yeah. More people should use it, including myself.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the complex and convoluted nature of some of my prose.
Mm-hmm.
I need Grammarly. But that's a perfect example. It's there when you need it. It's often observing what you do, not always, but copilots can be sitting on your shoulder and observing what you do, and they're there to help. Agents are quite different. And I think everyone knows this year is being touted as the year of the agent. And there are easily 1,000 different B2B AI agents being brought to market in 2025. And agents are fundamentally different in that they have the ability to make a decision and act quasi-autonomously. Now, in many cases, that autonomous action still needs human approval. So there's still human in the loop. And I believe that over the weekend, so we're talking, I think today on February 10th, over the weekend, HubSpot announced that, not HubSpot, I'm sorry, Hugging Face announced that any agent should have a human in the loop and a kill switch. And that they will be careful that any agents that they make available through Hugging Space will have those properties. But an agent is something that can take an autonomous action for you. And we've seen these a lot in stock trading, where algorithmic trading is really a set of very sophisticated algorithms that are making trading decisions for you and faster than any human would be able to make them.
Would you also put chatbots here?
It depends. If the chatbot is actually able to make a decision, so for example, the Intercom FinAI agent that is able to actually get to a customer support ticket resolution and decide that the ticket has been resolved, it's acting as an agent. But a chatbot that can make a decision on where to route you. So, for example, many of the chatbots that you see popping up on the bottom right of your screen are actually meant to make a routing decision or a routing decision for that the company makes to take you to the right place.
Yep.
So, in that case, they're agents. In other cases, they work more like co-pilots.
Okay.
So the critical thing here is, does it actually make a decision?
Okay. Perfect.
And a lot of the use cases for things for outcome-based pricing or results-based pricing really only become relevant when an action is taken on your behalf, and you can evaluate the value of that action and the success of that action. So
okay, that was brilliant. I hadn't thought of that before.
And then and then the other emerging model for commercializing AIs is what's called service as software, or service as a software. Service as a software bothers me for some reason, so I prefer the service as software name. And that's where you take a business process, and it can be a fairly complex business process, and execute it through a service. So, if you think about it, one of the earlier services software examples is, the applications that file your taxes for you. And they're fairly sophisticated applications. They're a combination of agents and co-pilots that you stitch them together, and they actually perform a complete service. So we're seeing more and more of that sort of services software solution being proposed. I don't think there are a huge number yet. And, as we said, this year, everyone's attention is on agents.
So do you think LegalZoom fits in services software?
It's getting there. And this is a continuum, right? There's a bit of a gray area. But LegalZoom is absolutely getting there, and we're going to see more and more things that you would normally have gone as a service, and you're going to have services as software performing it. Designing a house.
I feel sorry for my bookkeeper.
Yeah, but do you really think your bookkeeper enjoys their work? I don't know. I guess there are some people that enjoy the work.
She enjoys the paycheck.
But this will free her up to do higher value work for you.
Okay, excellent.
And you're going to be making so much more money because of your generative AI, leverage, that you'll be happy to pay her that extra money because she's adding more value to you and you're creating more value.
Okay, love to hear that.
This is the optimistic view anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the reason that we decided that we wanted to have this conversation is in the webinar, I had some wild thought that said, in the world of agents, I think we're all going to go to cost or cost plus, and it's going to become a commodity. And you said you think maybe not, but that deserves a longer conversation. So
Yeah,
guess what?
so let's have that conversation. So let's unpack that. So, um, uh, you know, economics 101 would argue that cost goes to the marginal. I mean, price will trend to the marginal cost.
Yep.
And so I think your argument is that agents have a very low marginal cost, not zero, but low.
I think there's a more important part to that argument,
Okay,
and that is that agents are easily copyable. There's not
yeah,
going to be that much differentiation in the long run for different agents.
I think that's the critical question, right? Is how differentiated will agents be?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's an agent that does, if it's the kind of agent that is, you know, good for outcome-based pricing. So, for outcome-based pricing, you have to meet three conditions, right? You have to be able to agree on the outcome. You have to be able to agree on the attribution for the outcome. And you have to be able to have some level of predictability. So this is a new thought for me, but just sort of riffing off what you said. So if you meet those three things, you probably don't have a huge amount of differentiation either. Your differentiation is really measured purely in terms of your outcomes and your predictability. So in that case, I think we're going to see rapid commoditization, and it will be really interesting to see with FinAI if FinAI is getting commoditized by Zendesk, by Microsoft, by OpenAI.
So let me throw out an example, if I can. A friend of mine the other day said, "Hey, I'm going to create this new business, and I want to create buyer personas using AI."
Yep.
And so you could easily see crafting an agent to create a buyer persona.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you do that, there's nothing that stops me from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to go create a buyer persona agent. And so, or by the way, I could just go into ChatGPT and type in my criteria anyway and get a buyer persona out. So I don't really need someone like that. But then I think about what you and I do, and that is the world of value and value models and how it actually is a bunch of complicated steps to get to the end point. And that feels to me more like we can differentiate it, but I don't know that you can put it in as an agent at that point.
Yeah, but I think that's the critical thing, right? So let's take the whole workflow of starting from the initial need by a customer, need by a company to have a pricing model, and go through all of the steps that are involved in that. So you need to generate a value model. You need to validate that value model in some way. You need to analyze the value model. You need to map the value model to business use cases, possibly to personas. Possibly do a functions to value driver mapping. You need to get to bundling. You need to explore different pricing options for those different bundles. You need to do some price optimization. You need to have an adaptive response to the market. Doesn't sound like one agent to me. That sounds like 50 agents.
Yes.
But they're orchestrated together into services software. So, do I think there's going to be a pricing agent? I think there could be for highly transactional things. If you think about it, highly transactional purchases could be priced by and bought by agents. But if you think
there are a lot of pricing software companies that do black box AI pricing today.
Yep.
Right. And so we could say, yeah, that's an agent, or you could even call it SaaS if you wanted to, if someone's just implementing it.
Yeah. So they're not structured as agents as far as I know today. So if you look at Pros and PriceFX and Vendavo and Zilliant and so on, they have not structured their offers as agents. So I don't think their underlying technology lends itself to doing that. But some new company could very well come up with a pricing agent that optimizes pricing for single transactions. I'm pretty sure that any market in which you can create that agent, there will also be a buying agent.
Probably.
So you're going to have two agents negotiating with each other, which I think is actually another interesting thing for us to discuss, because there's been a lot of focus on the use of AI in the sales process that sometimes seems to forget that anything that sales does, the buyers are going to respond to. So we're going to see a lot of AI used in the buying process as well. But coming back to your question, so to the original question we wanted to discuss, are all agents by nature more subject to commoditization than other parts of the ecology, like co-pilots or services software or generators? So my gut feeling is that there are going to be agents that are highly differentiated because they rely on highly customized underlying language models and highly tuned prompt sequences that would not be easy for someone else to recreate. And that they will be able to make better decisions. So let's take a American sports example, a timely one. Almost all of us can throw a football, and most of us can catch a football if it's well thrown. Some of the time, anyway. But there are some people out there that are incredibly good at throwing footballs. People that can catch stuff that you and I would never be able to catch. And they're doing the same thing, but they're highly differentiated, and they make a lot of money for those specific skills.
So here's the point. That's the winner take all theory that says, look, being just a little bit better at catching a football makes the team a lot of money. You and I being a little bit better at pricing than someone else is okay, but it isn't like, hey, we get hired or don't get hired based on the fact that we're the best. Right?
Yeah, and I think pricing, as I said, apart from very specific and narrow cases, I don't think pricing is going to be done by agents. Pricing will be services and software.
Yeah. So whether it's pricing, it's the whole winner take all theory that says, look, if it's a competition and I have to win the game, then I'm going to pay a whole lot more for the marginally better thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not a winner take all and it's not a competition in that someone wins it, then buying the second best at a whole lot lower price is fine with me.
Yeah, but you would still pay at least something more for a differentiated agent that had better performance.
Yes.
So I don't think we're changing the sort of ground rules of pricing here. I mean, if something is differentiated and provides more value, you'll pay more for it. Now, how much more will you pay? Depends on the dynamics of the industry. So in algorithmic trading, where either you're right or you're wrong on every trade. Every trade is either you make money or you lose money. There's no gray area. So those areas where there's an absolutely right or wrong answer, I think we might slip into more of a winner takes all mode, where there will be a lot of price differentiation between the top performer and the rest.
So I can't keep up with all the names of these things, but the new Chinese AI that just came out, DeepSeek, and rumor has it that they trained that using ChatGPT or OpenAI's information. And so if you just say to myself, hey, Stephen Forth built this amazing agent I'm going to use his agent to train my agent.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
black box it. That's not a completely comparable thing because that's not really what DeepSeek did. Uh, and I'm not, who knows? Did DeepSeek find a way to get OpenAI's model and then train on top of that model? If they did, what on earth is wrong with OpenAI's security?
yes.
But regardless, but I think that's actually but you've identified a really interesting dynamic, right? That's probably going to happen in agent space, where you treat an agent as a black box. You do lots of inputs, you see what the outputs are, and in almost every case, you'll be able to replicate that black box very quickly. So that's that's an interesting dynamic. And basically, what, as I understand it, what DeepSeek did is that they found a better way to do the post training optimization. And it's, is it a huge game changing advance? Maybe not, but it's super smart, and everybody's going to adopt it. So thank you, DeepSeek.
Yeah.
And if their pricing holds, because their pricing is what, it's like 80% less than OpenAI's. Great. That'll just make it easier for the rest of us to adopt generative AI in all sorts of interesting new ways.
Yeah.
But coming back to your question, so are agents, by their very nature, prone to more rapid commoditization than other approaches to AI? Yeah, I mean, you're getting me to change my mind. Think, yeah, when you think about it, given the fact that you could train an agent against agents and rapidly replicate it, and the current generation of agents tend to be doing fairly discrete, easily defined things. Yeah, maybe they are going to be more subject to commoditization. Now, tomorrow morning, so this is the 10th. So on February 11th, Ibbaka and Maxio are going to be launching a new piece of research together, where we look into the monetization of agents. And are there patterns appearing in the monetization? And this conversation is getting me to think that I should probably take a look at commoditization patterns in agents. I'll have to think about how we could see into that, especially at this point in 2025, where it's still relatively early in the game.
Right. It'll certainly be a time study where you get to see what happens over time.
Yeah, and commoditization implies, I think, two things, right? One is that the functionality gets standardized, and two, that the prices become more and more uniform.
Yep.
So, yeah, we'll have to.
Okay, so now I want you to push back on the next one. Let's pretend that it's true that agents become commoditized.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't the exact same thing hold true in SaaS? Right? No, it's going to take longer. It's more complicated. I'm totally with you.
I think it's in part because the outcomes are more open. So
more open-ended.
Yeah, and they're more exploratory. So there's, I forget who did it. Maybe Klein, the guy who did the research into high performance teams. But there's a one kind of team is a goal meeting team. You give the team clear goals, and it goes out and it meets those goals. But there's another kind of team that is a goal seeking team, where it has to define and constantly redefine what goals it's trying to achieve. And I think that most innovation driven companies are goal seeking teams, not goal meeting teams. And I think we're a long way from having that kind of thing commoditized. And if you take sort of a context based pricing approach, part of that, your goal in context based pricing is to establish contexts. It's not just to take a context that's given; it's actually to establish the context.
Yep.
that to me is much more of an open-ended goal-seeking approach than it is a goal-meeting approach. So the sort of narrow view of pricing, where you're optimizing a number, I think that will be rapidly. I would argue that it actually is largely commoditized at this point in time. I don't think that at that core functionality there's that much difference between the old heavy metal pricing systems. Those are pretty mature technologies. They're wrapped differently, but at the
it's actually kind of interesting if you think about the difference between an agent. They're certainly goal meeting, and you could say a SaaS is goal seeking, and that
SaaS maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be. I'm sure it's a continuum. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll look at the one that you brought up, bookkeeping, or tax filing. All I want from my tax filing is it be done fast, and that it maximizes my minimizes my taxes or maximizes the money the government's going to pay back to me,
and doesn't put you in jail.
And if an ethical breach has occurred, that they're responsible for it, not me. So if somebody's going to go to jail, it ain't me.
Right.
Now, assuming, of course, that I've provided them with honest information. And
so let's go to LegalZoom for a second, because this is actually interesting, right? If I were to hire a lawyer for some reason, I probably don't even know what the outcome is that I want. I probably know the situation that I'm in, but I don't know the outcome I want.
Yeah. My solicitor had a good definition. So he said, a good solicitor's job is to make sure that you never need a litigator. But, and since like most people who've been in business, I've been in litigation, clearly I needed better solicitors, but, or maybe I just needed to take my solicitor's advice better.
Yeah. Who knows? So,
but, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, but I think there's lots of cases though where it's clear, right? Like when you're conveying a house in real estate, conveyancing there's no reason that it requires human intervention in today's world.
What does that mean? Here in the U.S., we don't use those. We don't use that.
Transferring the ownership of a house from one person to another.
Got it. Like title transfer.
Yeah,
with you.
Yeah, I mean that seems to me to be now it's probably more than just an agent, because there's lots of sub tasks involved. So it's probably services software. Although maybe it can be boiled down to something simple enough that an agent can do it. Yeah. I don't know that space well enough, but
I don't know either. But I got to tell you, last time I bought a house, I must have signed 100 documents.
Yeah,
like there's just no reason for that.
And I would be happy to trust an AI agent to sign those for me, because you know what? I didn't read them.
I know. Absolutely. Stephen, we're out of time. I had two other topics I was going to bring up with you if we ran out of time, but we didn't. So let's do it again. I still want to talk to you about generative pricing, because I don't believe in it, and I know you do. And I want to talk to you about token-based pricing and how I think that's nothing other than cost plus pricing, and what we could do to get away from it, or whatever we're going to do. So
we'll find some more time to talk.
Yeah, sounds great. Stephen, as always, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
The best way is by email, Stephen, Steven, at Ibbaka, IBBAKA.com. And I am very easy to find and generally quite responsive on LinkedIn.
Very active on LinkedIn too. So excellent. I forgot to ask you the last question. Do you have a piece of pricing advice you'd give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
Yes, I think that they need to put themselves in the buyer's shoes and ask themselves, how would I be using AI to make a buying decision?
Excellent. And I just have to share with everybody that Stephen the other day sent me a prompt that he used for evaluating a product he was looking to buy. And I used the same prompt for something I was looking for. And it's incredible. So you really want to go do this.
Yeah, I think that anyone who's not doing this is putting their business at risk.
Yeah. Excellent. To our listeners, thank you so much for your time. If you enjoyed this, would you please leave us a rating and a review? We did get a review from someone who didn't enjoy this. NBS FMC left this review about the podcast. Endless pontification. Host clearly doesn't know as much as his guests. It's hard to understand why anyone sits through this. He's constantly patronizing guests, rewording their answers, and generally trying to correct them to make himself seem smarter. It's not working. His big idea? 1, good, better, best works for everything. And 2, cost-based pricing is bad. Avoid. Stephen, did you write that?
I did not, and I would not, because for a few reasons. One is you want a podcast host that is reaching out to talk to people that know stuff that they don't know. So good on you. That's what you're supposed to be doing. The pontifications charge, I'm sure guilty as charged.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes by pontificating, one gets to explore new ideas too, and that's important in pricing in this part of in this day and age. Do I think you are an unadulterated fan of GBB? I didn't know you worked for one of those big consulting companies. And cost-based pricing, there's a reason we don't like it, and we'll talk about it in another session.
We will. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. And finally, if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, or if your company needs help getting paid more for the value you deliver, feel free to email me, Mark at impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.